Here is a new style narrative, without headings or special characters, capturing the theme you requested. The man who pledged to end endless wars and bring America home from foreign entanglements now finds himself in the eye of a storm that he once vowed to avoid. President Donald Trump's campaign message centered on putting America first and extricating the United States from protracted military engagements abroad. Yet as events have unfolded, this June, the scenario his most fervent supporters feared is playing out before their eyes. In effect, the base that rallied around his isolationist bent is watching as the United States becomes entwined in a war between Israel and Iran, with Trump forced to navigate terrain he once promised to steer clear of. It began when Israel launched a surprise airstrike targeting key Iranian nuclear and missile sites. Iran retaliated with ballistic missiles aimed at Israel, shattering an uneasy calm in the Middle East and drawing in U.S. military involvement. The United States stepped in to assist Israel by intercepting Iranian projectiles and by mounting its own strikes against Iranian facilities, a dramatic escalation that crossed the line Trump once said he would not. U.S. forces were reported assisting Israel's defense efforts, and U.S. bombers struck deeply buried Iranian nuclear sites at Forward, Natanz and Isfahan, in what the president described as a spectacular military success. The intervention has sent shockwaves through the region and stirred deep concern among U.S. allies, adversaries, and the American public alike. For Trump, the shift is a jarring reversal of his earlier refrain that America would focus on its own interests, not get dragged into foreign conflicts. MAGA-aligned voices that once cheered his non-intervention promise now express dismay and anxiety. Charlie Kirk, a prominent conservative commentator, asked how the America First agenda squares with U.S. forces aiding Israel and engaging Iran. The war-weary segment of Trump's coalition fears the United States is once again slipping into a distant war, one that delivers no clear victory and poses open-ended risks. The White House has had to walk a tightrope. On one hand, Trump has publicly backed Israel's right to defend itself and praised the U.S. military's role in the operations. On the other, he has warned Iran at levels never seen before it attacks U.S. interests, and claimed his objective remains diplomacy, not full-scale war. But the contrast between words and actions has been stark. Trump's earlier posture of restraint is now replaced by active involvement, and critics argue the shift could undermine his credibility with his base and on the world stage. The consequences are already rippling outward. Oil prices have surged as the Strait of Hormuz and other Middle Eastern flashpoints face growing instability. Global markets are jittery. Diplomats warn the escalation could draw in multiple states and ignite a regional conflagration. Within the U.S. political realm, Trump faces criticism from both Republicans and Democrats, from the right for breaking the isolationist promise, and from the left for risking American lives and global stability without broad congressional support. Beyond the immediate military dimension, Trump's political standing is under strain. The narrative that he would extricate America from wars was a key component of his appeal. Now he is seen by many as presiding over a risky foreign adventure. Analysts note that if the U.S. becomes bogged down or suffers casualties, the fallout could reverberate in domestic politics and undermine his claim of being the peace candidate. The irony is cut deep. The worst fear of his most loyal supporters, that America would be drawn back into the Middle East, is now manifesting. Inside the administration, the tensions are palpable. Some advisers argue the strategic importance of destroying Iran's nuclear and missile capability outweighs the risk of an expanded war. Others warn the decision to strike may have been rushed and lacks clear insight. The president's post on social media made clear that the U.S. planes had safely returned and that the mission was successful, yet independent experts caution that verifying damage to subterranean nuclear sites is difficult and the full impact remains uncertain. Iran has vowed retaliation and cancelled nuclear talks while preparing for further confrontations. The UN nuclear watchdog said that some enrichment centrifuges may have been disabled, but full assessment remains ongoing. Back home, the political calculus is complicated. Trump still commands a passionate following, but the shift in foreign policy may alienate a segment of his base that prioritizes non-intervention. The equation of America first now must contend with America involved. The opposition sees an opportunity to paint him as inconsistent and risky, while foreign policy hawks question whether the U.S. is now committed to an indefinite engagement. For Trump, this moment represents perhaps his greatest test outside of the multiple legal and domestic challenges he faces. He must show that involvement yields sustainable gains and that the U.S. can exit without being mired in open-ended conflict. If he fails to articulate a clear path forward, or if the war drags on, his earlier promise to keep America out of foreign wars may become a liability. The timing is also significant. With domestic worries about inflation, housing, and the economy simmering, an overseas conflict draws resources and attention away from issues voters care about. If the war becomes protracted or American casualties mount, the pressure could shift dramatically. In this sense, the risk is not only strategic but deeply political. Yet the unfolding crisis may also offer Trump a window to reshape his legacy. If he can broker a peace deal, diminish Iran's nuclear ambitions, and withdraw U.S. forces swiftly, he might claim vindication as a leader who used decisive force to achieve diplomacy. But that scenario remains uncertain. The fog of war and the unpredictability of Middle Eastern geopolitics make any clear outcome elusive. In sum, a president who once pledged to redress U.S. foreign entanglements now finds himself at the center of a major military confrontation. The fears he once assuaged among his voters are now confronting him head-on. The coalition that cheered no new wars is watching anxiously as America enters a new chapter of involvement. The question remaining is whether Trump can convert this moment into a success, or whether the situation will spiral into the very quagmire he warned against. History will judge this episode as one of the defining foreign policy tests of his tenure. For now, he must navigate a path that honors his campaign promises, reassures his base, and delivers a strategic outcome that bolsters America's security, all while avoiding the trap of endless engagement. The worst fear of slipping back into foreign war is no longer theoretical. It is real, and it is here.